You almost died and you still can't do one thing right for this family? My mother said it coldly across the dinner table while my father nodded. 8 months earlier, while I lay in a coma for 21 days, they visited my ICU room exactly twice. 21 minutes total. My sister was too busy filming her kitchen renovation for YouTube to even show up. Last Sunday they invited me back and calmly demanded I pay for my father's kidney transplant. "It's your turn to sacrifice," they said. I smiled, looked at the quiet woman in the navy cardigan sitting at the end of the table, and said, "Elena, please open the folder." My father's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. "My name is Katie Watts. I'm 33 years old. Tomorrow night, everything they did while I was fighting for my life comes out. And they will finally understand the real cost of abandoning their daughter. If your blood is boiling right now, smash like and subscribe. Comment 21 minutes below and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. Are you on Team Katie? Because what happens next will leave you absolutely speechless. Let me take you back. Before the dinner. Before the file. Before I knew the woman in the navy cardigan was the only person in that hospital who counted my mother's minutes. I grew up in Edina, Minnesota. If you don't know Edina, picture a Minneapolis suburb where the lawns are mowed in diagonal lines and nobody ever fights in the driveway. Families do not fight in Edina. They have brunch. They send Christmas cards with matching sweaters. They keep their voices down, even when they are saying the cruelest things they have ever said to each other. My mother taught second grade at Highlands Elementary for 31 years. Linda Watts. Sweet voice, soft cardigans. A refrigerator magnet a student gave her in 2003 that says, "World's Best Teacher." The magnet is still on her fridge. She has thrown away every photograph of me from the last decade, but she has not thrown away that magnet. My father, Howard, was a general contractor. He built half the houses on his block before his knees gave out. He is a quiet man. I used to think his quiet was wisdom. I learned, slowly, that his quiet was a kind of agreement. My sister Brooke is 3 years older than me. She runs a YouTube channel called Caldwell Home Reno, 120,000 subscribers. She married a contractor named Travis Caldwell, who's been one bad season away from foreclosure since the day Brooke met him. They have 2 kids, Olivia, who's 8, and Mason, who's 5. The whole channel is built on the idea that Brooke is the magic that makes their broken life look beautiful on camera. And me, I'm the other one. Katie, senior software engineer at a fintech firm in downtown Minneapolis. I bought my own condo at 28. I refilled my father's pillbox every Sunday for years. I drove him to dialysis 3 times a week, starting in February of 2024, because Linda said her back couldn't handle it. I was the one who showed up. In our family, that was understood to be my role. Brooke prayed online. I drove. Both counted, my mother said. They did not. In June of last year, June of 2025, I went to my father's nephrologist with him. They had moved him to stage 5. He needed a transplant. He had been on the deceased donor wait list for 14 months. I sat next to him in the parking lot afterward, and I told him I wanted to be tested. I'd already looked into it. I'd already done the paperwork. He didn't ask. He didn't push. I just offered. He cried in the car, quiet crying, the way he did everything. He squeezed my hand and said, "You don't have to, kiddo." I said, "I know I don't, Dad." I scheduled the compatibility workup at Mayo for August 28th. I never made it to that appointment. In 2020, after my Aunt Lorraine died of an aneurysm at the age of 46, I bought a life insurance policy for $750,000. The premium was reasonable for a 30-year-old single woman with no dependents. I named my estate as the beneficiary. I figured if it ever paid out, the lawyers could work out the rest. I figured wrong. I figured a lot of things wrong, but that one costs the most. The Sunday before everything happened, my mother had us over for dinner. Late July. Brooke spent the meal scrolling tile samples on her iPad and complaining that her kitchen was the most unphotogenic room in America. Linda nodded along, indulgent. Travis ate quietly. My father asked me in his small voice, "You taking care of yourself, kiddo? You look tired." I had been getting headaches for 3 weeks. I had told no one. Linda cut in over him. "Brooke, sweetheart, show them the new mood board." My father went quiet. He always went quiet. He looked at me across the table, and I looked back, and we said nothing. That was my last memory of him before the ICU. Him not defending me. Him not saying, "Linda, I was asking my daughter a question." Him not finishing his sentence. Him going back to his plate. I loved him anyway. I drove him to dialysis the next morning. I refilled his pillbox the Sunday after that. I made the Mayo appointment. I signed up to give him a kidney. I never asked who else was on the list. I should have. The aneurysm came on a Friday, August 8th, 2025, 8:14 p.m. I had a chicken in the oven. I'd been getting headaches all week, but I'd written them off as deadline stress. I was 40 minutes into a roast when my vision went white at the edges and my left hand stopped working. The kitchen tilted. I made it to the living room. I dialed 911. I remember telling the dispatcher my name. I remember telling her my mother's number, which is strange, because I can't remember why I gave it. Some animal part of me thought she'd want to know. Then the floor came up. I woke up 21 days later. I would learn, in pieces, what happened in between. The ambulance took me to Abbott Northwestern. 3 subarachnoid hemorrhages. Hunt-Hess grade 4. They put me into a medically induced coma to reduce the brain swelling, and they kept me there. 2 craniotomies, a ventilator, a feeding tube, the full equipment. The doctors told my family I might not wake up. They told my family if I did wake up, I might not be the same person. My mother was listed as the medical proxy because she was the one who showed up on the paperwork the night I was admitted. I had a durable power of attorney I'd filed 2 years ago naming a friend, but in the chaos of admission, hospital staff defaulted to next of kin. That was my first mistake. Not mine, really. The system's. But I paid for it anyway. For the first 3 days, my mother sat in the chair by my bed. She held my hand. She prayed. I have this from Elena, later, who came on shift that Monday and remembered seeing my mother there. On day 4, my mother stopped coming. The badge logs at Abbott Northwestern are exact to the second. Every staff member, every family member, every visitor scans in and out. The logs are preserved for 7 years. They cannot be edited. They are not interpretive. They simply record. Across 21 days of my medically induced coma, my parents entered my ICU room exactly twice. The first time was August 11th, a Monday. My mother and father arrived at 10:43 in the morning. They left at 10:55. They were accompanied by a man named Mr. Reardon from North Star Bank. Reardon was carrying a leather folder. My mother signed 3 pages of something at the nurse's station outside my room. Then they left. The second visit was August 25th, also a Monday. They came with a lawyer named Whitlock. My mother signed something else. Whitlock photographed it. They were inside my room for 9 minutes. Linda left a blue paper coffee cup on the windowsill. The cup was still there when I woke up 4 days later. Housekeeping had not thrown it away. Nobody had been in that corner of the room enough to. 21 minutes, across 21 days. The hospital is very precise about that. I would not learn most of this until February, 8 months later, from a woman I had not seen in 12 years. While I was unconscious, my sister was filming. On August 15th, day 7 of my coma, Brooke uploaded a 43-second reel to Instagram. She was wearing a pink hard hat. She was swinging a sledgehammer at the cabinets of her old kitchen. The caption said, "Demo Day." This family is so blessed. The reel hit 410,000 views in 72 hours. She did not mention me in the caption. She did not mention me in any caption that month. Her sister was on a ventilator 41 miles away, and her algorithm preferred a different story. On August 28th, day 20 of my coma, Brooke uploaded the kitchen reveal video. Quartz countertops, white cabinets, a blue tile backsplash she'd been agonizing over for months. $89,000 of renovation, all done in 3 weeks. 2.1 million views by the end of October. In the comments, somebody asked her where the money had come from on such short notice. Brooke replied, "A family blessing. I'll explain everything in a video soon, but my heart is so full." She never made that video. I came back on August 29th, 7:42 in the morning, a Friday. I remember the first thing the way you remember a photograph. A hand on my wrist, a soft pulse against mine, a voice saying my name. Not my mother's voice. Not anyone I knew yet. "Katie, I'm right here. Just breathe." The hand belonged to a nurse named Elena Hartwell. I would not remember her name for another 6 months. I would only remember the hand. She had been there every shift for 3 weeks. She had been there longer than my mother had. The first face I saw wasn't theirs. I was in the hospital for another 26 days. Most of it is a blur. Cognitive fog from the bleeds, speech therapy, physical therapy, relearning how to hold a fork. My mother visited a few times a week now. She brought magazines I didn't read. She talked about Brooke's kitchen. She talked about how blessed the family was. She did not tell me anything that had happened in my own apartment. The night before discharge, she brought me a coffee mug for the ride home. It was the Watts family Christmas mug from 2018, green and red, a snowflake on one side, all our names painted on the other. Mom, Dad, Brooke, Katie. She handed it to me wrapped in tissue, like a gift. I was too foggy to remember that. The year before, she had told Brooke this was the mug she was passing on to her. As the family keeper, she'd said. I'd been at that Christmas. I'd watched the handoff. I hadn't said anything. Now she was handing it back to me, like I had won a prize I hadn't applied for. "You're going to be just fine, sweetheart," she said. "Brooke's been a rock through all this. We're all so blessed." I nodded. The cognitive fog made everything sound like it was happening through a wall. My condo had been cleaned. I came home on September 24th, and the apartment was spotless in a way I had not left it. The dishes I'd had soaking on August 8th were washed and stacked. My laundry was folded in a way I did not fold laundry. Somebody had thrown out the burnt chicken from the oven. Somebody had been living there for a while. My mother handed me a key when she dropped me off. "I had your locks updated, honey. The old ones were getting sticky. I just took the spare back home with me." She was already walking to her car. "Call if you need anything." I stood in my living room, and I tried to remember if I had asked her to do that. I had not. A picture was missing from my nightstand. It was a photo of my father and me at my college graduation, 14 years ago, both of us squinting in the sun. I had kept it next to my bed every night of my adult life. It was gone. There was a single bobby pin on my bathroom counter. It wasn't a brand I bought. The refrigerator magnet with my cardiologist's phone number was also gone. I sat on the edge of my bed and I thought, very slowly, because my brain was still slow, somebody is curating my apartment. I did not have a word for it yet. I just felt it. 2 months later, on Thanksgiving, my mother raised her glass at the dinner table at her house in Edina. There were 8 of us. Aunt Patricia, my father's sister, was the only one of his siblings who came that year. The others had begged off. "I want to make a toast," Linda said, to Brooke. "Our family's strength this year." The one who kept us together. Brooke beamed. Travis said nothing. Aunt Patricia raised her glass with what I can now identify as the smallest possible motion her elbow could make. My father, beside me, did not lift his glass at all. He reached under the table. He squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you, kiddo," he whispered. His voice was thick. "For being here," I said. "Proud of me for what, Dad?" He looked confused for a moment, like he was reading from a script he half remembered. For being here," he said again. He was 68 years old. The dialysis was rough on his cognition. But that wasn't the only reason he sounded uncertain. I would understand later that my mother had been spending 8 months telling him a story about what had happened to me, about what they had done, about what was reasonable. He was repeating her lines back, badly, in his own house. That was the moment I started to notice that my father did not remember things the way I did. A month after that, on December 21st, my parents had me over for a pre-Christmas dinner. Linda waited until dessert. Then she set down her spoon and said, "We need to talk about Dad's care, sweetheart. It's going to be expensive. We need to talk as a family about what each of us contributes." Brooke nodded sagely from across the table. Travis stared at his phone. My father did not look up from his pie. "You're our successful one, Katie," my mother said. "We've always counted on that." I drove home that night and I wrote that sentence down in my phone. We've always counted on that. I didn't know why I wrote it down. I just knew that the next morning, when I read it back, something in my chest moved. Something in my apartment was wrong. I just hadn't found it yet. January 23rd, a Friday. I was at a coffee shop on Lyndale Avenue called Cafe Latte. I'd started going there because the cognitive fog was finally beginning to lift, and the noise of a room full of other people was helping me concentrate. I had my laptop open. I was going through bank statements I had not looked at since before the aneurysm. A woman in a navy pea coat stopped at my table. Katie Watts?" I looked up. She had a small, careful smile, long brown hair pulled back. She was maybe my age, maybe a little younger. I did not recognize her immediately, but her voice, the cadence of it, was familiar in a way I could not place. "I'm sorry," she said. "I don't know if you remember me. Elena Hartwell, junior year, Sanford Hall, room 318. You used to leave Post-its on the fridge." It came back. Not all at once. Slowly, like a developing photograph. We had been roommates for 1 year at the University of Minnesota, 2013. She had been a nursing major. She had moved to Madison after junior year for her BSN program, and we had drifted the way you drift from college friends, which is to say, completely. "Elena," I said. "Oh my God, what are you doing here?" "I moved back to Minneapolis about 1.5 years ago," she said. "I work at Abbott Northwestern. Mind if I sit?" I gestured to the chair. She sat down. She ordered a tea. I had a strange feeling I couldn't name, like she was a teacher waiting for me to ask the right question. We caught up for 10 minutes. She talked about Madison, her brother, her work. I talked about the fintech firm in vague terms. Then there was a pause and I felt her gather herself. "Katie," she said, "I have to tell you something. And I want you to know I have been trying to figure out how to say it for 5 months." I set down my coffee. "I was your nurse," she said. "I was the charge nurse on your ICU floor for your entire admission. I came in for my first shift the night after they brought you in. The next morning, on rounds, I saw the chart. I saw your name. I almost dropped my coffee." I did not say anything. I waited. "I want you to understand something," she said. "I was not your friend in that room. I was your nurse. There are rules. I followed them. I never spoke to you the way I would have spoken to my friend Katie from college. I treated you the way I would treat any patient on my unit. With one exception." She lifted her tea. She set it down. She lifted it again. I started keeping notes. The coffee shop was crowded. Espresso machine hissing. Somebody's baby crying. None of it touched the table. I have been a registered nurse for 9 years, Elena said. I have never in my life kept a private file on a patient's family. I made an exception for you, because what I was watching for 3 weeks did not match what your mother was telling everyone, and it didn't match what I would have expected from any family with a daughter in your condition. She reached into her bag. She pulled out a manila folder. She did not open it. She laid it on the table between us. The label on the tab said, in neat block letters, Watts. Index. I'm not going to open it for you here, she said. I'm going to ask you to think about whether you want to see it. If you want to see it, we'll meet again. And I'll walk you through it. Page by page. But you should know, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And it will change everything you think happened during those 3 weeks. I sat very still. How much is in there? I said. More than I want there to be. Did you see things I should know about? Yes. From my parents? Yes. From my sister? A pause. Yes. I looked at the folder. I looked at her. I said, I want to see it. We met 2 weeks later, February 6th. Same coffee shop, different table. She brought the folder. She brought a yellow highlighter. She brought a tablet with screenshots queued up. She opened to the first page. It was a printout of the ICU badge log from Abbott Northwestern. Every entry into my room across 21 days. There were nurses and respiratory therapists and attending physicians and residents. There were maintenance staff. There was a chaplain who had come in 3 times. There were a handful of close friends from work whose visits I would never know about until that morning. There were my parents. Twice. August 11th. 10:43 in. 10:55 out. 12 minutes. August 25th. 1:16 in. 1:25 out. 9 minutes. I sat there. I did the math out loud. 21 minutes. Across 21 days, Elena said. She did not say it the way you would say something cruel. She said it the way a nurse says a vital sign, just the number. They thought no one was counting? She said. I was. She turned to page 2. It was a printed screenshot of my sister's Instagram. The demo day reel from August 15th. The kitchen reveal from August 28th. Both with the dates circled in red. Below them, she had taped a small photograph she had clipped from a still frame, Brooke in her pink hard hat, mid-swing. I want you to look at the dates of these posts, Elena said, and then I want you to look at the dates on the badge logs above them. I looked. She said, then I want you to pull your bank statements before I show you the rest. Because I want you to find some of it yourself. Or your mother will say I fed it to you. She slid a sealed envelope across the table. No name on it. Lightly bulky. Open this when you've seen your own accounts, she said. Not before. I did not open it for 3 days. I logged into my Wells Fargo savings account on February 10th. It was an account I had not touched in 2 years. I keep my emergency fund there. I had told myself I was going to use it for a down payment on a bigger condo someday. The balance was wrong. It was not just lower. It was lower by exactly $112,000. I scrolled down. There was a single outgoing wire transfer, dated August 20th, 2025, day 12 of my coma. The destination was an LLC I had never heard of. Caldwell Renovation Studio, LLC. I stared at the screen. I read the description 3 times. I picked up my phone and called Wells Fargo Fraud Services. I said the words, I want to file a fraud claim on a transaction. It was 8 months ago. The man on the line was patient. He asked me to verify my identity. He pulled up the wire. He read the details back to me, including the email address that had received the wire confirmation. The email address was not mine. It was a forwarded address. An address that had been added to my account 2 days before the wire, on August 18th. That detail froze me. Whoever had moved the money had not just authorized a transfer. They had built a system. They had set up an email forwarding rule on my account on August 18th, the same day they were sending other paperwork to a hospital. The forward was so they would receive the wire confirmation without the alert ever reaching me. They had planned this. They had not improvised. I hung up. I sat at my kitchen counter. I tried to keep breathing. The next morning, I called Mayo Clinic, the compatibility workup that had been scheduled for August 28th. The receptionist pulled my chart. "Ms. Watts," she said, "your appointment was canceled on August 17th. The caller provided your insurance number and your date of birth, and notified us that you'd had a medical event and would not be moving forward with donor evaluation at this time. Do you have a name for the caller?" "I have a name and a relationship." The caller identified herself as Linda Watts, mother. She had canceled the appointment that was going to keep me on a transplant list as a living donor. The next day, she had submitted something else to a different transplant team. I would not know about that yet. I called Caroline Reeves on March 2nd. A Monday. Caroline is a fraud litigation attorney in downtown Minneapolis. Mid-50s, iron gray hair. The kind of woman who answers her phone on the second ring because she does not have a problem with confrontation. I sat in her office. I told her calmly, in chronological order, what I knew. The badge logs, the wire transfer, the forwarded email, the canceled Mayo appointment, the conversation Elena had had at the coffee shop, the sealed envelope I had not yet opened. Caroline listened without interrupting. When I was done, she said, "In Minnesota, a forged signature on an insurance instrument is a Class C felony. A wire transfer authorized by an unauthorized email forwarding rule is federal wire fraud. You don't need to win the argument, Katie. You need to win the paper." She picked up her yellow legal pad. She wrote my dates in a vertical column. She said, "We're going to subpoena the beneficiary records on your life insurance. We're going to subpoena the wire authorization. We're going to subpoena the notary's records. Have you opened the envelope yet?" "No. Don't. Not until I have the other receipts. Whatever's in that envelope is the third piece. If you open it now, your mother will say you got the rest of the case from a nurse with a grudge." She closed her pad. She looked at me. "Are you prepared for this to break your father?" I did not answer right away. I thought about my father at Thanksgiving, squeezing my hand. I thought about him at the December dinner, not looking up from his pie. I said, "He doesn't know everything yet?" "Does he?" Caroline said, "We'll find out." The subpoena to MetLife came back on March 12th. They produced the beneficiary change form, Form 712, a standard document. Signed Catherine E. Watts, dated August 21st, 2025. Notarized by Edward Halloran. I looked at the signature. I looked at it for a long time. I said, "That's not my signature?" Caroline asked me to write my name on a blank sheet. I did. She held the two side by side. "How do you know it isn't yours, beyond the obvious?" she said. I dot my I's. The forger didn't. I cross the T. The forger doesn't. And my middle name? I pointed. It says Elise. My middle name is Eloise. Caroline made a note. She didn't know your middle name. My mother didn't? Apparently not well enough to spell it under pressure. We sat with that for a minute. Then Caroline pulled out a second document from the same MetLife packet. It was attached as an addendum. It was not on letterhead. It looked like something you would print at home. The title at the top said, Private Agreement, Split of Proceeds. It was a one-page contract, dated August 26, 2025. 2 signatures at the bottom. The first was Brooke Watts Caldwell. That signature was hers. I had seen her sign Christmas cards 100 times. The second was Howard Watts. I leaned in. I looked. My father has signed my birthday cards every year of my life. He writes a small H with a loop. He starts the W like a child does, very wide. He hooks the T. This signature had none of those things. I looked at Caroline. She forged my father too. Caroline did not look surprised. She had been waiting for me to see it. She didn't just do this to you, I said. No, Caroline said. She did this to both of you. I picked up the page. I turned it over. I set it down. I picked it up again. It was the moment I realized that this story was not just about a daughter being abandoned in a hospital. It was about a wife who had been planning to outlive her husband. Then I saw the second signature, and I understood that my mother had been lying to him longer than she had been lying to me. I drove home from Caroline's office that night, and I did not sleep. I sat at my kitchen counter. The sealed envelope from Elena was on the table where I'd left it for the 3 weeks Caroline had told me to wait. It was a Wednesday, March 18th. I opened it. There was a single photocopy inside, a single sheet of paper. The top of the page said, Abbott Northwestern, Department of Organ Transplantation, Internal Ethics Review, Log. The subject line was 3 lines long, but I only needed to read the first line. Inquiry received from Linda Watts regarding non-consensual living donor evaluation of comatose daughter. Referred to Ethics Board, August 18th, 2025. I read it once. I read it twice. I read it a third time. My hand started shaking on the third read. I called Caroline. It was 9:46 at night. She picked up on the second ring. Did you open it? She said. Not a question. Yes. Read me the first line. I read it. Caroline was quiet for a long moment. I have the matching letter, she said. I got it from the hospital this morning. I was going to call you tomorrow. It's the formal refusal from the transplant coordinator, Dr. Megan Vance. She declined the inquiry on the grounds that it was procedurally impossible and ethically untenable. The letter notes, and I'm quoting, concerning intent on the part of the inquirer. I tried to absorb this. I tried. Katie, Caroline said. Her voice was very gentle, which is not how she usually sounded. Your mother asked the hospital if they could harvest a kidney from your unconscious body. On day 10 of your coma, they said no. She did not tell your father. She would have. She would have what? She would have done it. If they had said yes, she would have signed the consent, and she would have done it. Caroline did not answer. I asked, Is there anything else? She said, Yes, there's one more thing. I drove to her office at 7 the next morning. She was already there. On her desk was a small Bluetooth speaker. Elena gave me a transcription a week ago, Caroline said. I asked her if she could find me the original audio. She did. It came from your mother's voicemail backup. Brooke had forwarded the message at one point to your Aunt Patricia's phone, asking her something. And your aunt, apparently, had screen recorded it for reasons of her own. Brooke didn't know. Patricia didn't trust her sister-in-law. She had been collecting things for years. Patricia, I said. We'll talk about Patricia. Let me play this. The audio was 12 seconds long, my mother's voice, on a voicemail to my sister. Dated August 23rd, 2025, day 15 of my coma. She said, The doctor said it could go either way, honey. They keep saying it's still touch and go. If she pulls through, we'll figure something out. If not, we're set. If not, we're set. I sat in the chair across from Caroline's desk. The room was very quiet for a long time. Then I said, Play it again. She played it again. One more time. She played it a third time. I did not cry. I did not feel like crying. I felt very far away from my own body, like I was looking down at myself from somewhere above the ceiling. I said, "My father didn't know." "No." "My father thought she was waiting to see if I would wake up." "Yes." "She wasn't. She was hedging." Caroline waited. I said, "She was using my coma as a financial strategy." "Yes." I thought about it. I said, "She wasn't trying to save him. She was trying to use me." Caroline closed her laptop. I sat there for another minute. Then I said, "I want to tell him." "Tell who, Katie?" "My father. I want him to hear it. I want him to be in the room. I want him to learn it the same way I learned it. From someone who isn't lying to him." Caroline studied me. She is not a sentimental woman. She does the math first. "You could litigate this without telling him," she said. "We could let the grand jury surface it. He would learn anyway, from a subpoena. You don't have to be the one to bring it to him." He nodded for 50 years, Caroline. He nodded for 50 years while she did this to me. He has a right to learn it. He has an obligation to learn it. And he has the right to learn it before strangers do. She nodded slowly. "Then we plan a dinner." I said, "2 dinners." "2? The first one will be hers. She'll think she's the one running it. I want her to give me the speech. The full speech. The "you have to pay for your father" speech. I want her on the record. Then I want her to spend a week thinking she got what she wanted. And the second one? The second one, I said, will be ours. If you've been holding your breath, take a second. I want to ask you something. If you were me, if you'd just found out your own mother tried to harvest a kidney from your unconscious body, would you go to that dinner? Drop your answer in the comments and tell me the one thing you'd bring with you to the table. I want to know. My mother called on April 2nd, a Thursday. Her voice was the warm, businesslike voice she used for parent-teacher conferences. She had probably rehearsed it. "Katie, sweetheart, we need to have dinner, about your father." "Of course, Mom." "This Sunday, the 5th. Just family, I'm doing pot roast." "That sounds nice." There was a small pause on her end. She had been ready for resistance. She didn't get any. "I'll bring a guest if that's okay," I said. "My private nurse, post-aneurysm protocol. They want me to have someone trained nearby for a few more months. She'll be very quiet." A 3-second pause. Then, in her teacher voice, "Of course, sweetheart, of course. It'll be lovely to meet her." I hung up. I wrote on a sticky note, April 5th, 6:30 p.m. Below it I wrote, "Elena, file, no emotion." I stuck it on my monitor. On the Saturday before the dinner, I wired Brooke $1. I did it through Venmo. I added a memo. The memo said, "For the family blessing." Caroline laughed when I told her, which is rare for Caroline. "That's not evidence, Katie. That's poetry." I needed her to know I knew. "You'll regret antagonizing her before the dinner." "I won't." I didn't. Brooke did not respond. She did not refund the $1. She did not text me. At 11:47 that Saturday night, her Instagram account went private. Her last public post had been a photo of her 2 children making pancakes. The caption had said, "We are so lucky." I drove to Adina on Sunday with Elena in the passenger seat. Elena was wearing a navy cardigan, gray slacks, low heels. She had a leather portfolio on her lap. The portfolio was thinner than I expected. Caroline had spread the receipts across 2 folders, but for tonight, Elena was only bringing one of them. "We do 2 pages tonight," I said, more to myself than to her. 2 pages, then we leave." 2 pages, Elena said. "You don't need to read with any emotion. The pages have it. I have read pages in hospitals to families since I was 23. I know how to do this." I appreciated that she did not pretend to comfort me. She let me drive. The house I grew up in is at the end of a cul-de-sac. The lawn was mowed in diagonal lines. There was a wreath on the front door, even though it was April. My mother answered, smiling. "Sweetheart, come in. Both of you." She extended her hand to Elena. "And you must be the nurse. How wonderful. How nice to meet you. Elena Hartwell, thank you for having me." "Oh, of course, of course. Come in. Howard, the girls are here." Brooke wasn't there. My mother said it cheerfully. "Brooke is on a shoot. Some sponsored thing. She sends her love." Travis wasn't there either. "He's with the kids. He sends his love too." 4 at the table. My father at the head. My mother on his right. I sat on his left. Elena at the far end. The chipped salad plate was at my seat like it always was. It had been my seat for 10 years. My father's hand shook when he reached for his water. I had not seen it shake like that before. We ate. Linda talked about a tile job she'd seen in House Beautiful. She talked about a neighbor's surgery. She did not look at Elena. She did not look at me, either. Not really. She was performing for the room. Halfway through dinner, she set down her fork. She had been waiting. I had been waiting. "Honey," she said, "we need to talk about Dad. The dialysis is hard. The wait list has been hard. We've been carrying this alone, your father and I, and Brooke has done so much already with her time." My father stared at his pot roast. "You're the one with resources," Linda said. "We were thinking, well, it's your turn to sacrifice." I let her finish. I said, "How much, Mom?" She blinked. "How much?" I said again, very gently. "Just give me the number." I watched her face change. The sweet teacher voice slipped for 1 second, like a slide deck flickering between layers. The mask wasn't fully off, but I could see the seams. She said, "Don't make me itemize it, Catherine." "I'm asking." She looked at my father. He did not look up, and she said it. "You almost died and you still can't do one thing right for this family? Just say yes, like you always do." The room went very still. My father nodded. I felt 33 years of being the daughter who said yes collapse into a single word in my throat. I did not let it out. I let the silence sit for 2 seconds. I watched my mother realize what she had just said in front of a stranger. Then I turned to the end of the table. "Elena," I said, "please open the folder." Elena lifted the leather portfolio onto her lap. She opened it. She turned to the first page. She read in her professional flatness, "Abbott Northwestern Hospital. Patient Watts, Catherine. ICU admission, August 8th, 2025. Discharge August 29th, 2025. Total visitor badge entries by parents during admission, 2. Total ICU time on visitor badges by parents, 21 minutes. She paused. 21 minutes, she said. Across 21 days. My mother's smile did not move. The wine glass in her hand did. I watched her knuckles go white. Elena turned to the second page. Wells Fargo wire transfer log. Account. Watts, Catherine. August 20th, 2025. Outgoing wire to Caldwell Renovation Studio, LLC. Amount, $112,000. My father's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. He set it down very slowly on his plate. He turned his head, like he had to make his neck do it manually, and he looked at my mother for the first time in the entire meal. Linda recovered fast. "Honey, the hospital must have lost data." I held up one hand. "Mom," I said, "I'm not asking for an explanation tonight." I folded my napkin. I set it on the table. I stood up. "I'm not giving you my answer tonight either. I want all of us at the table. Brooke, Travis, Aunt Patricia too. Dad's sister deserves to hear this with him. Sunday next. Same time. Same table. And Elena will be back." My father did not look up. My mother did not move. I walked over to my father. I put my hand on his shoulder. He did not lift his head. I said, "Dad, I love you." Then I picked up my coat, and Elena picked up her portfolio, and we walked out of my mother's house into the cold April air. "Sunday next, Mom. All of us at the table. Bring Brooke, bring Travis, and tell Aunt Patricia too." The week between the two dinners was the longest week of my life. I did not call my mother. She did not call me. Aunt Patricia did. She told me, in her low Eden Prairie voice, that she had received an invitation from Linda for Sunday the 12th. She had said yes. She did not need to ask what for. "I have been waiting 40 years for this conversation, honey," she said. "I will be there." Brooke called Travis. Travis called me. He said, very quietly, "Whatever happened Sunday, I want you to know. I didn't know about the money. She told me you'd authorized it. She told me you wanted to help." I said, "I know." "That doesn't make it okay." "No, it doesn't, but thank you for saying it. Thank you for—" Caroline filed the formal fraud complaint with MetLife on April 9th. The notary, Edward Halloran, had his license suspended pending review. He had been on the Minnesota Secretary of State's radar for 2 other matters. He did not return our calls. Caroline did not need him to. By Friday night, an investigator from the Minnesota Insurance Fraud Division had agreed to be present, in plain clothes, in a car outside my mother's house on Sunday evening. His name was James Ackerman. He had read the file. He had asked Caroline one question. He had asked, "Is this the worst one you've ever brought me?" She had said, "Top 3. Sunday, April 12th, 6:30 p.m. The house I grew up in. The same wreath on the door. The same diagonal lawn. This time, 6 at the table. My father at the head. My mother on his right. Aunt Patricia directly across from her in a navy dress, watching her with the expression of a woman who has been waiting a long time to look at her sister-in-law from this exact angle. Brooke next to my father, pink-glossed lips, perfect blowout, performing innocence. Travis next to Brooke, silent. Me on my father's left. Elena at the very end. My father looked smaller than he had a week ago. He had not slept much. I could see that in his eyes. My mother poured the wine. "It's been so long, Pat," she said brightly. "I'm so glad Katie finally got us together." Aunt Patricia, dryly. "So am I, Linda." She used Linda's full name, flat. Weight on the second syllable. It was a small thing. It was a disarmament. The soup came out. My mother lifted her spoon. She set it down. She had been preparing all week. She launched first, before I could. "I want to apologize for last week," she said. Her voice was the warm one again. The cardigan voice. The teacher voice. "I let myself get emotional, and that wasn't fair. But the truth is, Katie, we are a family that takes care of its own, and your father is going to need significant resources. And you are the daughter who has them. That's not cruelty. That's just math." My father nodded. Brooke nodded. Travis did not. Linda lifted her wine glass 3 inches. She did not sip. "We are simply asking you to do for him what he did for you for 22 years. I waited until she set the glass down. I said, "Of course, Mom." I smiled. I picked up my spoon. I set it down again. I turned to the end of the table. "Elena," I said, "would you mind opening the folder again? From the beginning, please." Elena opened the leather portfolio. She turned to the first page. She read the badge log. The same 2 pages from dinner 1. 21 minutes. Across 21 days. But this time Aunt Patricia was hearing it for the first time. I watched Patricia's lips part. I watched her hand go to the locket at her throat. The locket had a photograph of my father, age 6, on a porch in St. Paul. Patricia had been 4. She had carried him on her hip. Patricia said, in a voice so low it was almost a whisper. "Where were you for 3 weeks, Howard?" My father did not answer. He looked at his plate. Linda said, "Pat, you weren't there. Don't be cruel." Patricia said, "You're right. I wasn't. The question is, why weren't you?" My mother's mouth did not move. I said, "Elena, page 2. Elena read the wire transfer. $112,000. Caldwell Renovation Studio, LLC, August 20th, 2025. Brooke set her water glass down too hard. A drop hit the tablecloth. Travis stared at the wall above the buffet. Patricia turned to Brooke. "Whose money paid for your kitchen, sweetheart?" Brooke did not answer. Linda said, "Honey, this is all a misunderstanding." I said, "Then explain the wire transfer, Mom." Brooke broke first. Her voice came out breathy and small. "Mom said she'd authorized it. She said Katie wanted to help." I said, "Brooke, I was in a coma." My father, very low. "Linda, did you—" Linda, cutting him off. "Howard, finish your soup." That was when my father set down his spoon. I have spent 33 years watching my father not finish sentences. I have spent 33 years watching him swallow what he was going to say. I had stopped expecting him to ever finish anything. I had loved him anyway. I had driven him to dialysis anyway. He set down his spoon. He looked at his wife. He said evenly, "Let her finish, Linda." The whole table stopped. Linda's face went pale for the first time in the meal. She had not heard him use that voice in 20 years. Maybe ever. I had never heard him use that voice in my life. I looked at Patricia. Patricia nodded at me, barely. I looked at Elena. I said, "Elena, page 9. Elena turned to page 9, the MetLife packet. She read in her professional flatness. MetLife Form 712. Beneficiary change. Signature dated August 21st, 2025. Notarized by Edward Halloran. Beneficiary of life insurance policy on Catherine Eloise Watts changed from estate of Catherine Watts to Brooke Watts Caldwell." I added very quietly, "That isn't my signature. The forger spelled my middle name wrong. Elise, not Eloise." Linda said, "You don't know what you're saying. You had a brain bleed." My father said, "Linda, did you sign her name?" Silence. He said it again. "Linda, did you sign our daughter's name?" She did not answer him. I said, "Elena, page 11. Elena turned to page 11. Page 11 was the photocopy I had read 3 weeks ago in my kitchen at 1 in the morning. She read it slowly, without inflection, like she was reading a chart. Abbott Northwestern Hospital. Department of Organ Transplantation. Internal Ethics Review Log. Inquiry received from Linda Watts regarding non-consensual living donor evaluation of comatose daughter. Referred to Ethics Board, August 18th, 2025. She stopped. The room stopped. My father stared at his wife. His face went the color of paper. His fork, which he had picked back up at some point, fell from his hand. It hit the china. The sound of steel on porcelain was the only sound in the room. He whispered, "No way." Nobody moved. Brooke began to cry without sound. Travis stood, but he did not leave. He stood like a man whose legs had decided for him. Patricia put her hand on my father's wrist. Her locket trembled against her sternum. My father did not look at her. He was looking at my mother. He said very quietly, "You did that," while she was in a bed. Linda's mouth opened. The thing she had been swallowing for 33 years came out at her own funeral, and she did not even know it was a funeral. "You don't understand what we were trying to save," she said. Her voice cracked. Her voice rose. I had never heard her voice rise in public in my entire life. "He's your father. They told me she wasn't going to wake up. They told me the chances were—" We had to do something, Howard. We had to do something. My father said, in the same quiet voice, "You had to ask me." Elena turned to the last page. She read, "Private agreement dated August 26, 2025, between Howard Watts and Brooke Watts Caldwell. Splitting future life insurance proceeds of Catherine Watts, 50-50. My father picked up the page. His hand was shaking. He looked at the signature at the bottom. He said, almost in wonder, "I never signed that." He said it again. "I never signed that. I never would have signed that. Kate." The doorbell rang. Caroline came in. She had a leather portfolio identical to Elena's. James Ackerman from the insurance fraud division came in behind her in a plain dark jacket. 2 portfolios on one table. Caroline said, "Mrs. Watts, Mrs. Caldwell, you are not under arrest. You are, as of this moment, under formal investigation for insurance fraud, wire fraud, and forgery." Linda did not respond. Brooke was sobbing now. Travis was asked to remain available for questioning. Aunt Patricia helped my father stand. He held the edge of the table with both hands. I walked over to him. I put my arms around him. He smelled the way he had always smelled, Old Spice and dialysis. He was so small in my arms. I said, "I'm sorry, Dad. I had to." He shook his head against my shoulder. He said, very slowly, "No, I'm sorry. I should have stood up a long time ago." Then Elena and I walked out of my mother's house. The April air was cold. I stood in the driveway under the streetlight for a moment, and I exhaled, really exhaled, for what felt like the first time in 8 months. The week after the dinner was a blur of paper. The grand jury convened on April 14th. Edward Halloran's notary license was suspended on April 16th. Wells Fargo refunded the $112,000 on April 19th. MetLife reversed the beneficiary change on April 21st. Brooke's YouTube channel went dark on April 22nd. The kitchen reveal video is still up. The comments are disabled. My sister did not call me. I think she's still waiting for me to call her. I will not. Travis moved out the second week of April. He took the kids. Brooke is staying with my mother now. I am told this through Patricia. I do not ask follow-up questions. My mother has retained an attorney. She has not contacted me directly. I have not contacted her. Caroline says this is the correct configuration. My father did one thing in those final weeks that surprised me. On May 3rd, a Sunday, he got a call from the transplant team. There was a kidney. The match was strong. He had been at the top of the list and the offer was real, and he had a window of hours to accept. He listened. He thanked the coordinator. He said no. He called me that night. I'd rather go knowing the truth than live on something she arranged. I sat at my kitchen counter with the phone against my ear. I did not say anything for a long time. He said, "Don't carry me. Not financially, not emotionally. I let it happen. I am sorry. Don't carry me." He hung up. He mailed me a letter the next morning. It arrived 2 days later. It was 3 sentences. I have them by heart now. I'm sorry I didn't see. I'm proud of you. Don't carry me. 11 days later, he was gone. He died at home, in hospice, on the 14th of May. If you've ever had to choose between the family you were born into and